AEW in talks with former WWE talent. Also, we're giving you a huge update on Shane McMahon. And yes, we are going to talk about some great news for the WWE. It's all coming up right here on the Ango Show. Yes. Welcome back to the channel. I want to kick things off with some great news for maybe AEW, because there could be something to the Shane McMahon thing that is being talked about. AEW president Tony Khan was speaking with SportsIllustrated.com, and one of the things that got brought up in this interview was Shane McMahon. Tony Khan says, "I heard the rumor that he might be interested. I've never met Shane, but we have a lot of mutual friends. I have a lot of respect for him as an executive and a professional wrestler. Shane is always welcome in AEW." Now, what's actually really interesting about this is today, AEW has revealed that Jeff Jarrett will go up against a wild card in the Owen Hart tournament. Now, obviously, some people are speculating that it could be Hangman Page, which I think is a very fair assessment, especially if he's joining the Elite. You know, Jeff Jarrett just had an incredible video package as to what Owen Hart meant to him. And obviously him going up against Hangman Page puts over Hangman Page as the heel, especially if the Elite are helping him out. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is because on the flip side of that, it wouldn't shock me necessarily if AEW did have Shane McMahon enter in the tournament. Now, I'm not saying that Shane McMahon is joining AEW, but I do think it could be somewhat beneficial for the short term. But also, on the flip side of that, if Shane McMahon went to AEW, not only would I find it incredibly weird because he is a McMahon, but I don't want AEW to bring him in just for some short-term success. I want them to like actually have a game plan, whether that's like a backstage role or a manager role or whatever it may be. You know, I think some people don't realize how good Shane McMahon actually is, but I think it's really important that AEW tends to put their focus on the young and up and coming talent. And when you bring in Shane McMahon, you are going to get the headlines. You are going to have people talk, but how does that translate to your product? I know Tony Khan now being vocal about this, being vocal that Shane McMahon is welcome, is interesting, because I do think in some capacity this would not be the most crazy thing to happen. I mean, literally, I think it is actually possible. But of course, you know, everything I say with AEW, it's always about the follow-up. When you do something, it's about the follow-up and what's the long-term plan. And sometimes I think that's where things get a little bit shaky with the company themselves. But yeah, Tony Khan isn't admitting that Shane McMahon is joining the company, but he is saying that he is welcome in the company, and we'll have to wait and see. Let's talk about NXT Heatwave, ladies and gentlemen. This is some fascinating news and some great news for WWE NXT. You might not hear me talk about ratings, but you will hear me talk about attendance. And WrestleTix provided a huge update for WWE NXT Heatwave, which is taking place next week, Sunday. In 2 weeks. Well, actually, no, it is next week, Sunday, July 7th, 6:30 p.m., Toronto, Ontario, Canada. They have a current setup of 11,045 seats, and so far they've already sold 8,100 seats. Just under 3,000 seats available. Tickets are moving. They're moving relatively quickly, and this is part of NXT being packaged on the same weekend as Money in the Bank, as well as SmackDown. Obviously, people are going to be attending WWE events that weekend, and that makes a lot of sense. And that's obviously a good thing, because as more people have interest in going to SmackDown and Money in the Bank, hopefully WWE is producing good enough content for NXT to make fans also want to go to NXT. It's an interesting strategy because today it looks like the interest is there. That's amazing. That is amazing. I mean, hopefully we can get to the point where WWE NXT does this far more often. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think NXT is such a brilliant product. I think they have the best women's division. I think there's a lot of consistency, a lot of continuity. They do their thing, and they do it every week. And when I see NXT Heatwave getting some numbers like this, I'm fascinated by it, because you still got to remember that this is the developmental show. And it's been a long time since WWE has had these big crowds for NXT, you know, and especially in comparison to the black and gold era, you know, it's one of those things that's like definitely a different product. And, you know, I think the NXT product is great. I know it's subjective. I know people don't always agree with me. But when I see NXT doing things like this, I'm excited about it because I want them to do things like this. And I think they are deserving of doing things like this. I also want to point out WWE having NXT Heatwave sell this many tickets may be a sign of what is to come. There's rumors that WWE is going to take NXT out of the Performance Center when going to the CW. And that's a very interesting and bold strategy. And I'm not sure if they're ready for it yet. But clearly there is some momentum there. And I do want to point this out as well. WWE NXT is working with TNA. Is there some sort of expectation that fans have that maybe TNA gets involved with Heatwave? We don't know. But it's obviously something to pay attention to. So that is something I'm definitely excited about. That is something I'm definitely hopeful for. I'm curious if this will legitimately sell out. I'm not sure. But obviously it is great news. You know what else is great news? Mason Mansoor could very well be headed to AEW. Now, this is a huge update in what we have talked about previously, which there was reports that maybe they would be headed to AEW. Now, as of right now, there is nothing on the dotted line that suggests it is a done deal, but Fightful Select has reported that both Mason Mansoor are in talks with AEW. What's interesting, though, is that they are in talks to being utilized for Ring of Honor. I was pretty excited up until I read that part because truth be told, I think Mason Mansoor is so great and I want them to be on TV, and Ring of Honor doesn't really have momentum. Ring of Honor doesn't really have the same level of excitement as a Dynamite. These guys are so talented. These guys are so great. And for them to be locked away into a paywall, I hate that so much. And that's just an overall thing with AEW and ROH. I just don't like how that's being handled, and I think it could be a lot better. But these guys are so great, and I want them to get paid. I want them to do well in professional wrestling. I felt like they were severely underutilized in WWE, and even when they were put together with wacky gimmicks or whatever it may be, like, these guys still came out and found a way to make it work. I want these guys to do this great stuff on Dynamite every single week and be a major part of the tag team division. They're great characters. We know that, but they're also great wrestlers. And if you don't know that, you're not going to be able to see it if they're tucked away into Ring of Honor. So the best way to utilize them would be to put them on Dynamite and Rampage and Collision. For some reason, the Ring of Honor portion really messes with me and it really bothers me, but I am excited for them regardless, because ever since they left WWE, it's kind of been like a matter of time until we see where they go. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. This is, in fact, the Ango Show, and I will see you guys next time.